Welcome back everybody to Tony's Top Tips Workshop. Now this is a video on, I've got a project to do. This is on, I'm using Aspire. Now it's a chess piece, and it's a Harry Potter chess piece. I downloaded it from Thingiverse, and it's just basically to try the machine out and the rotary axis on the 4040, but having one or two problems with the, not faults, but once you get your head around the offline controller. I'll just show you my offline controller. Right, that's my offline controller for my Pro machine. Okay, it's a DSP they call it. Now on that it has, you can go back to origin, or you can go back to work origin, which is job origin, home origin. Okay, now the problem that I've found with the, let me hang that back up, there we go. The problem that I've found with the offline controller from Sainsmart is, yes, it has a home, you can click it and it'll go to home wherever it is on the cutting, you know, surface, so to speak. Yeah, go to home, not a problem. But what it won't do, you can't send it back to job origin. There is no job origin, or I haven't found it. If anybody has found it out there, then please let me know, because but there is a way around it. How we get around it is by looking at the coordinates. When you first start your whatever toolpath you're cutting, when you get it into position over the rotary axis or your job sheet, whatever it is, then what you do, and you can actually do it in 3-axis mode as well. You know, if you're just cutting some out on the board, it works quite well with that. There's the offline controller, as it, because in the setup it says, do you want 3-axis or 4-axis on the setup, initial setup. Now what I've found you do is you zero it off, X and Y, touch off, and then once you've got it all into position, you've done that, and you zero it off. When you've done a G code, a toolpath, then it should return to that 0, 0 position. Right, that's your job origin, wherever you've set it, because you've zeroed X and Y off and you've touched the Z off. Right, the problem occurs is, like myself, this job, in fact what I'll do is I'll just go over to show you. This is the job, and I'll show it in 3D mode, and that's the actual, you see that, I'll just rotate it a bit, that is a slithering pawn piece, chess piece, which by the way is that one. It's not, that's not finished, that was just part roughing pass, and it was, believe me, just in that, and it's not finished, the roughing cut was 7 hours. That machine run faultlessly for 7 hours. It would have run, I reckon there'd have been 11 hours work to finish that in the roughing toolpath. Yeah, sorry, I'll go out of focus, I'm not using the other camera. But anyway, that's the piece, as you can see. Now if you go over to toolpaths here, I'll just lock that off there, you can see this, come back on, there we are, cell now. As you can see over right there, there's 4 toolpaths. There's the on that one there, that one, the rounding toolpath. Right, it doesn't matter which order, it would if you were cutting all these together, if you linked all these together to want to do one process, but obviously you couldn't do a, you'd have to do it with one cutter, because you'd link all the toolpaths together. Then that rounding toolpath would be up at the top, okay, and you'd do them in sequence, so it'd do them in the pecking order. It's pretty straightforward, is that, but they're all saved as individual toolpaths, so it doesn't make any difference to me. Now the rounding toolpath is doing it from a square blank. Put it in. I've set the rounding toolpath, 6mm cutter, set the speed 1600 millimeters per minute. It can probably run faster, and it'll set off. Once you've zeroed it, it'll set off and it'll do the corners first and then move on to the next corner, and then it'll do a rounding down to the diameter that you've requested it to do. Okay, the pocket toolpath, I'll just show you that in a reset view. Now that's the rounding toolpath when it's done. Okay, that's down to the diameter that you require. And if I click on the pocket toolpath and run it, you'll see what this one does, because that's flattened it out now. Okay, and you can see there it's put so that center part from there to there is my actual dimensions of my job, the actual pawn. That's it. Those are turned down so they're easier to cut off, and there's just enough there to give it its strength while it's being cut. Okay, there's actually a guy on he does a really good informative video on YouTube, and he shows you doing this and why he does it, and I actually picked it off him, and it's quite a good way to do it. Eventually I would have got around to doing that, but he just sort of give you the information to that's how he proceeds with things. So that's your pocket toolpath. Okay, and once you've set that up, then I'll reset the preview. Now you've got to remember, when you visualize it, it's in a flat piece. It's as though that's been sliced and unwrapped in its length. That's what you're seeing. And I'll click on the roughing toolpath. Now the roughing toolpath, I chose to do it with the 5mm ball nose, obviously to get some material off, and then the finished toolpath is done with the 3.175 ball nose. Reset preview, and I'll visible toolpath. As you can see it there now, the 5mm takes quite a lot of meat out, but it knows. And what's more, I'm not going to go through all settings for the cutters and this and other, because people use different programs, but I've left where it can 1/2 mil on for the 3.175 ball nose to actually take off for its final cut. Now, as you're aware, and I showed you that one, it's ultra smooth, and that's on a roughing pass, so that'll be a little bit rougher because it's a 3.5mm. Okay, now there's various ways of actually doing your roughing toolpath. You can do it across, which is like raster, and it'll go from, if you watch the mouse, it'll go from there across and work its way down whatever depth you've set in. I've set mine to do 1mm each pass, so there's quite a few passes, and your overlap, I think, on the 5mm cut is about 30%, so the chuck will turn enough to give it a 30% pass over with the cutter. Now as it goes from there, it'll dip down until it, obviously there's certain areas where it has to leave 1/2 mil on. It might leave a little bit more on because that cutter will reach in too far, but you just leave the software program on. Now that is the roughing pass. Okay, I'll just go back to reset preview, and then we'll go to the finish toolpath. Now there you go, that's the finished toolpath done. And if you look at that, it does a pretty good job of getting the detail in, but you could get more in by actually running another toolpath which would on the 3D roughing toolpath, use maybe a 3.175 and then step down to maybe a 1mm ball nose. But the unfortunate thing with that is, believe it or not, when I did that one, as I said previous, the roughing toolpath on there was set with a 3.175 ball nose. All that give you fantastic detail and smoothness. I mean, that is, I'm not joking, it's ultra smooth. And I'm going to do the I'm going to do that again. Right, you can see that working. Now it looks as though, because it's done this bit here, as you can see with the pointer, that it's doing around here. But unfortunately, what it does do is it goes right across there, and it's going over areas that it's no need to, but it's doing it, it goes the full length of your piece again. So even though it appears to be doing it here on the deeper parts, it's still travelling across here. And I found this is what we're taking the time up. Granted, I did have it set at 1200 millimeters per minute, but at the end of the day, obviously the slower with the cutter doesn't always mean say it's right. I increased that to 1600, which made it a little bit quicker, and I've got one on now where actually I've done the rounding toolpath and I've done the pocket toolpath. But as you can see, it's still left quite a bit of detail in there as the roughing one, and the 3.175 ball nose will take that out. It'll all the rough edges, and it will smooth it off, even down to the, if you can see the emblem there, that's an emblem on that. So yeah, and as I say, with the pocket tool, with the 4 toolpaths there, now because I was using the same cutter for the rounding toolpath, which is a 6mm, like it's not an upcut bit, it's a 6mm twin flute cutter. It's one like you do worktops with, but a lot smaller, plunging. It's a cutting face at the bottom, and it cuts on the sides. Does a good job. Now I use the same cutter for that as I do for the pocket toolpath, 6mm. So there's no cutter change there. So in actual fact, when I'm doing if I come to save the toolpath like that, right, just get rid of that off the screen. There we go. Did it? Got a bit mixed up there. Right, what I've done is I've moved the toolpath, rounding toolpath first, and the pocket toolpath. So it says output all visible toolpaths to one file. They are ticked, so those two are visible to the, for saving now. This is what you need for the post processor, which is Sainsmart. You get that off Sainsmart's site. Sainsmart wrap 2A millimeters. But I have one on there for imperial inches, but I always work in millimeters. So now, if I wanted to save toolpaths, it would save the rounding toolpath first and the pocket one. So that'd be one job. You would load in, when you save it, it'll come up as one job, but there's 2 toolpaths in it. Because I'm using the same cutter, there's no cutter change. So it would actually do the rounding toolpath first. Once it's done that, it will go straight into the pocket, and it would do the right hand pocket first and the left hand pocket then, and then should go back to 0. I found sometimes, occasionally, it doesn't go back to 0, but it ain't a problem because you've already zeroed the handheld control off when you started your job. Okay, so that's that. These require 2 tool changes, and this is what I've been asked: how do you go back doing a tool change and getting it back into the same position? Right, well, I'm going to show you. And you must remember is, well, if say you've done the rounding toolpath you do it individual or as rounding and pocket together, then what you find is, if at the end of the day you think, it's going to take a long while, I'll do it tomorrow, you can switch the machine off once it's gone back to 0, switch it off. That doesn't alter it whatsoever, and I've done it numerous occasions. When you switch the machine back on, where mine's set at the moment, and I have a piece of paper always handy to write them down, and the machine will come up where it's been left as 00, is x-axis 231.000, and the y will be 121.749. That's just where mine's set, I presume. So this is one of the reasons why I've been asked to do this video. So whether you're doing the rounding toolpath and all of them individual, you would have to do the last two individual because they're different cutter changes, or you do the rounding and the pocket one together. On this it doesn't make any difference. But what people are asking is, how on earth, if you do a tool change, can you go back and change the tool and get it exactly in that position? Well, the hand control does allow you, but as I was explaining earlier, on my DSP I have a job origin, so it doesn't matter where you move it after it's gone back to, when it's done a cut, you want to do a cutter change, you 0 off, send it back to job origin, it goes to it exactly. And a home position, now your hand controller here, offline controller, has a home position, but it doesn't have a job origin. You have to look at your coordinates for that. And I found this out. So it wouldn't matter so much with those because there's no cutter change. It just, if you link them together and do it as one toolpath, it'll just do one first and then do the other. So what I'll do is I'll show you and I'll take you over to the machine. Right, I hope you can see it. We're at the machine now. Right, so I'll switch the machine on, and that's where it had finished to do the, don't matter, I'll just break its side bit off there. It's only what pocket toolpath is left on, the little bits, that's all. Okay, so it's done the rounding and it's done the pocket. Okay, I did start with doing the roughing toolpath with the 3.175, but decided to go with change the program and use a 5mm ball nose to see what it did, just for curiosity, that's all. See if it makes the job a lot quicker. It should make it a little bit quicker. Anyway, you can see I've got my block and I've positioned it behind there. Now imagine that's done either the rounding toolpath or both rounding and the pocket toolpath together, it doesn't matter. So you switch the machine back on after you've switched it off to go out or whatever you have to do. So you switch it back on and this is what you'll see. So you go down to settings, you must go into the, change it to 4-axis mode again, and then return to the screen. Okay, and then do this, then go to prepare. Okay, now that doesn't tell you, it's set at 1600 and it's times millimeters. Now if you press that once, that cutter, that y-axis or x-axis, it will move one of those steps, and I've worked out on this, when you press it once it does about 3 point some millimeters each time, one press. Or if you press and hold on that setting at the top, it would actually continue to move. Alright, whereas on the others it doesn't. Continuous millimeters, that's what it's for. Okay, so if you go down to start your job, click that. There you go, that's the figures that I wrote down. I'll just explain to you. X231.000 and Y 121.749. Now I presume that is from home. I don't know, I haven't checked that. I will do eventually, but this is mainly just to show you how to get it. So what I want to do now is 0 that, cut it off. Okay, and this will work when it's gone back to 0 after a toolpath and you want to do a cutter change. Okay, so what you do is go back to the previous page, and I want to move the x-axis. It doesn't need to move, just the y, and you need to go in the plus direction. So I press that, I'll go across there, and it only needs to go to there, so you can get your touch off probe onto the machine. You can get my touch off probe, click it on, there we go. So now we're zeroing off. This is after a complete switch off. Now you'd have to do it the same procedure after when you're doing a cutter change, because the cutter will not be back in the same place in the chuck. Okay, so then what you do is you go into probe, touch off. You see it's touching off now. So this is a new cutter, or you switch the machine off because you've gone out or what have you, or overnight. So you can take that out now. That's touched off. Okay. So then what we do, we have to get that back to that position, and then we know the x-axis, because it's not moved, it's only the y, and it needs to go in the y minus. So if you go back, just for curiosity, if you go back to start your job and click on that, you'll notice that the y-axis coordinates have moved, right? So we have to get them back now to that setting. Okay, take it back near enough, and then go down to job again. Now you notice 123.749. now it should be 121.749. okay, so I've gone a bit past, but that ain't a problem. So we want to move the back in the plus direction, don't we? So we'll go back down to return to page, go back to there. Okay, and you can see when you look at it, it's past. So then we go up to the top setting up there, and we alter that to 1. I think I've gone about 3 mil past, 2 mil past. So set that, go down to the plus, and then I'll just press it twice, once, twice. Okay, and you just a bit of messing around, but you can get back to job origin. This is what I'm showing. I've done this video for. Click on start. There you are, 121.749. so that is in exactly the position we want after the cutter change. We'd obviously start afresh from. Okay, now what happens if, so that's set in that position now, go down there and zero them both, X and Y. Okay, 0 0, and it always shows 1 there, I don't know why, but it 0 0 1, 0.001 rather. So obviously that's zeroed off now, and we could actually select a file, load it, and then run the file, and it'll be exactly in the same position as where you left it. So it'll pick up. Obviously you can't do that if you stop in mid-program. You'd have to run the whole program again, and it depends on where the a-axis is, but that's one of the unfortunate things. But now if that's been zeroed, when it comes back and it runs a 5 mil roughing cut on this particular time, it will come back to 0 0 0, all zeros, and the 0.001. So then you do the same, go back onto your y-axis and move it across to touch off with the new cutter installed. Okay, and then you would just move the y-axis back just as I've done before, except you move it to 0.001, and that is back in the exact position. Okay, I hope everybody can follow that. It's just a way of getting your job origin back, and I did a job other day on it, and I just wanted, it was a floating job, but I did a floating job with I can't show you because I don't know where it is. I did a floating job with 6 different float sizes, or spirals, whichever you called it, and it would just, and it had to change the cutter 6 times, but yet I got it back to the exact 0 on both X and Y every time by just remembering that. It's just messing from one screen to the other, but you can get the job 0 back. There's no, and this is what it don't annoy me, but you've got a probe for zeroing off, you've got a home position there, but that's no good to you, because if you set home, it comes back up here, stops here. There's no, you would have thought that they would have put an actual job origin, but they haven't. I don't know why, don't know, but anyway, that's the way that I get the machine to go back when you've done a cutter change or you've stopped it overnight. That's the way I get it back to the start position exactly, and it does do it exactly. When you're doing, you could have 6 or 7 toolpath programs, and each one you might have to do a cutter change. So that started off. Now when I do the finished toolpath, it will go back to whatever position it stops at. I don't know why, and I can't explain it really why it isn't on like the pocket toolpath. It doesn't go back to the 0 start position. Don't know why, but anyway, it doesn't make any odds. It's easy enough to change. But on the main CNC, I just tell it to go back to origin, move it away, touch off, send it back to job origin, go back exactly to the same place. But you can understand when you're pressing that button there that it's telling you the coordinates of where it is. So I move that 22 times, the y-axis, in the plus direction, but when I moved it 22 times this way, it wasn't back in the same position, and it should have been back at 0, because you're working on the centre of the shaft, the spindle, or wherever you set it to. So it should have gone back 22 times. It should have read 0. Well, 0.001, but it didn't. I had to move it back to that, and then you set off again. So it's just worth remembering. But it's not like my main DSP from the main CNC. It were rather expensive, and the CNC itself for £3,500. So it's going to be right and accurate. But this was a £443 CNC machine. I believe Sainsmart now brought a 3030 out. Don't know how good that, linear rails, ball screws. This should have had ball screws on. It'd been an exceptional machine, but it hasn't. I'd like to see him reach out to me and say, would you like testing it? Yes, I would, the ball screw one, because I have a ball screw one up there, 3030. See what the difference is. It's about $600 odd, I think. I looked on the site, or thereabouts. Stand corrected. But this is what I mean. I like the offline controllers because I can go on my PC. I'm not going to flipping heck, I've been on a program, which you can do when you're controlling the CNC if you want. Oh God, it's caused my PC to shut down. You've lost it. So to me, the offline controller, it's just running off it, and it's quite a long and lengthy program, is this, and it's running it. But as I say, we'll see how this goes, and I'll keep you informed. Right, this is the following morning. What I purposely did was, this is a really fine roughing cut, and I know yesterday it was running for about, well, I knocked it off at about 10 o'clock last night. It was running quite a substantial amount of time, never faltered, and I thought, right, I can't leave it running all night, what do I do? So I thought I'm going to try the pause function on it and see whether it's an indefinite pause or a pause that would only pause for a certain amount of time before it actually shut off the machine. So I paused it in the shop, and I left it on pause all night. I've just come to it now from 10 o'clock last night, and it's now 10 to 1 the following day, and I've just pressed pause to release it from that, and it started off. I've turned the spindle off because I can do that with the, I don't have to leave the PC switched on, and because I've got a separate control box, just switched the motor off, the spindle off last night, and left it on pause. Switched the spindle back on, press pause, and it's continuing. Now, if you're doing quite a lengthy, I mean, obviously I could have quickened this up and done it in about, the roughing cut in about 3 hours, easily. But you're limited to your spindle, and I wanted to try it on a long one to see what, if you had to break off or you're doing something at evening and you had to nip out and you wanted to, could you pause it and leave it pause indefinite? Well, the question is, I think you must be able to. Check the temperature of the control, the power brick and the control panel, and it's cool as a whistle. So I have the flame detector in my shop anyway, so just to be on the safe side. But at the end of the day, it's a good facility to have that you can pause it. Halfway through the final profile now. And when you look at the detail of it, right, here we are, finished item. Right, here we are now, back up from the shop. As I say, that video has been, it's sort of been put together to show people how I mean, other people might have different ideas, but it's to show how I actually get the job 00 back, how to set that up, how to cut a change, how to put your toolpaths in, however many cut or changes you have to do, and get it back to the actual 00 position. I've got a video where I'm going to show you really it's how to get the A-axis center. A lot of people, I've had one or two information feedbacks towards me as regards how on earth do you get the centre and keep the centre of the A-axis without actually, you know, lining it up every time. Well, there is a quick and easy way of doing that, and it's bang on every time. I'll show you that in another video. But that will be coming out shortly. Well, I don't know which one will come out first, whether that one or this one. But I thank everybody for the questions, and I hope the video that I've done helps people. So please like and subscribe, and remember, it helps me. I answer everybody. I say it every time. I love the feedback I get. And I've learned quite a lot from other people. They've responded with, you could try this, I've tried it, it's brilliant. So please keep it coming. I love reading. As I always say, be careful, be safe. Bye for now.